Good afternoon, everyone. It's also great to be here. Uh, we are in DETOUR, finding purpose when life does not make sense. Previously in session one, Joseph and his family. We were in Genesis 37, chapter, and also we jumped to chapter 50. That was in September 18. Let's do a review. We saw the complicated family tree of Joseph. Joseph, the 11th child, ang kapatid niya Benjamin, ang may half-brother and sister siya. Then, we saw how dysfunctional this family was with favoritism, with sibling rivalry, with deception, and we saw it generation to generation to generation. And we saw how the the dysfunctions of the family was broken by the ability to forgive by grace and also to forgive himself. Now, we said that God is the God of the override. Even our messes, notwithstanding the messes of this family, the Lord still allowed the Messiah to come through this family. Okay, God of the override. Our messes will not hinder God's purposes. By God's grace, our messes somehow gets incorporated into His plan. Not that there are no consequences, but the consequences, the Lord can override them. It does not mean you will not have the pain. There will be. There will always be consequences. But then the thing is, towards the end, God's will can still survive. We saw how he broke the dysfunctions of his family. He rejected many things in the past, and he chose to embrace the present. He rejected deception to embrace integrity. He rejected taking revenge and instead chose forgiveness. You cannot just reject something. You have to embrace something. When you have to say no to something, you have to say yes to something. He rejected passivity and he instead chose initiative. He rejected favoritism. He chose impartiality. He rejected jealousy. He chose contentment. He rejected betrayal and he accepted loyalty. We are now in session two. We now go Joseph and his work. We are going into Genesis 37 and Genesis 39 with selected verses. We begin by opening our workbook on page 16. Page 16, Joseph and his work. The background, Genesis 37:28. So when the Midianite merchants came by, his brothers pulled Joseph up out of the cistern and sold him for 20 shekels of silver to the Ishmaelites who took him to Egypt. So he was in the pit while he was waiting, while he was there, not knowing that he was about to be sold. While being in the pit, the realities of the pit, people, even those close to us, may envy us, may reject us, may harm us, may betray us. And that's painful, especially if these are the people that you love. We might, in some cases, have caused be part of the problem. May kayabangan din talaga si Joseph din naman. No? From the pit, the right response is to seek the Lord. How do we respond when we find ourselves stuck in the pit? Seek the Lord and pray. Do not blame others. Do not blame God. Ask the Lord to search our heart, and in case we are partly at fault, ask the Lord for forgiveness. Now, Joseph's brothers sold him to the Midianite merchants who took him to Egypt. This tells us that Joseph had to adjust. He was a pampered by his dad, and now he is take sold as a slave. He had to learn the work of a slave. Not only that, he has to learn their language, otherwise he will not survive as a slave. Because the Midianite merchants bought slaves from all over Africa and all over this place, and so ang mga kasama niya are slaves from other places. He will not survive unless matuto siya magtrabaho. Pangalawa, matuto siya makipag-usap sa mga kasamahan niya. The situation in Genesis 39:1. Now Joseph had been taken down to Egypt. Now Potiphar, an Egyptian, who was one of Pharaoh's officials, the captain of the guard, ibig sabihin ito, presidential security command ito, bought him from the Ishmaelite who had taken him there. Napansin nyo? Potiphar did something right here. As a boss, he was in charge of buying the slaves. And he didn't have to. I'm pretty sure may household may pwedeng utusan si Potiphar, but he did something that is right here as a leader. When you choose people, do it yourself. Huwag mo i-delegate pagdating sa hiring. Because pag nagkamali ka ng hiring, sakit ng ulo na maling hire, that will stay with you. But actually, this was a great choice because when he chose Joseph, he eventually was blessed because of the faithfulness of Joseph. The Midianite merchant sold Joseph to Potiphar, one of Pharaoh's officials. So he was sold. First, he was about to die, but then he was saved. He was sold as a slave to Potiphar. So he now has to learn Egyptian. Ambush niya, Egyptian eh. Hindi lang kailangan matunan yung mga salita ng kasama niyang slave, kailangan matunan niya yung salita ng Egyptian. At saka yung utak Egyptian. Iba ang culture nila. Now, Joseph is living far from home against his will. Actually, where he found himself, di naman niya pinili ito eh. Many of us are working in places and for people we actually had no choice or we do not like. That can be a detour. Joseph is living far from home against his will. Joseph did not get to choose his job or did not get to choose his boss. Or even if he did choose his job and his boss, wala siya malilipatan. Maski ang feeling niya, impyerno yung trabaho niya, hindi siya makakaalis. Para bang he is stuck. And Joseph's life seems to be completely out of his control. He's being put in the well. He's being sold. And now he's becoming a slave. Everything, his life was going where he was being dragged into it. And most of all, he was alone. Because his father thought he was dead. So nobody was looking for him. Is your Christianity clearly and consistently displayed? Obvious to everybody in your workplace where you work. Whether or not your situation is ideal or not, can they see the Christian in you? Or the way you react, the way you badmouth the boss, kung sisiraan nila yung boss mo, nakikisawsaw ka na rin. Kung during lunchtime, ang boss, ayun, ang pulutan nyo, nakikisali ka rin. Wala ka palang pinag-iba sa mga kasama mo sa opisina. What impressions do we Christians leave our bosses? Kung yung mga unbeliever na boss natin nakikita at saka yung mga kasamahan natin sa opisina na hindi naman mananampalataya, iba ba ang attitude mo pag nakapagbiruan sila ng mga bastos, kapag nagkaroon ng flirting sa office? Ano ba? Lumalaro ka ba? O yung pagka-Kristiyano, mulutang na lutang? The ideal employee. In Genesis 39, the Lord was with Joseph so that he prospered. Now note, where Joseph went, the Lord was with Joseph, which means he was obedient. He was seeking the Lord. In other words, Joseph took care of his relationship with God, even though he was in a place na kasamahan niya hindi mananampalataya. And he lived in the house of his Egyptian master. Pansinin ninyo, hindi siya common slave. Hindi siya nilagay doon because the slaves live in a separate housing. Okay, but he was allowed inside the house, so he was trusted. When his master saw that the Lord was with him and the Lord gave him success in everything, nakita niya na magaling si Joseph, pero kitang-kita din niya kung saan ang gagaling ang galing niya dahil sa Diyos niya. So, halatang obvious ba na magaling ka? At halatang obvious ba na hindi ka mayaman dahil yung galing mo itinuturo mo sa Diyos? Stuck like he is an almost universal experience. Sometimes you are stuck in a relationship that you gave up, but it is an addictive, destructive relationship, and you cannot say no to. You keep going back and back again. When you have little choice but to stay where you are, that's the definition of stuck. It's like being in the pit. The Lord was with Joseph, so he became a successful man. But the Lord was with Joseph. Okay? God can make you strong in the place where you are stuck. The Lord was with Joseph and extended kindness to him and gave him favor in the sight of the chief jailer. Ganun din yun. With God, you are location-proof. The Lord was with Joseph and caused him to prosper. The Lord was with Joseph so that he prospered and he lived in the house of his Egyptian master. When his master saw that the Lord was with him, that the Lord gave him success in everything that he did. Although ba ang Diyos ng mga Egyptian, kitang-kita niya, superior itong boss ni Joseph. Kasi ang galing, maski ano ibibigay ni Potiphar na assignment, ang galing, he can get it done. Maparaan, mapano. Joseph found favor in his eyes and became his attendant. Not only was he working inside the house, he actually had access now to the bedroom of Potiphar. he became his attendant. Naging valet. Naging valet siya ni Potiphar. Potiphar was a senior officer, parang kung sa atin pa, general. Hindi lang basta general, naka-assign sa presidente. Naka-assign siya because he is the captain of the guard. Our work is the best platform we have for representing His nature to others. Doon tayo magkakaso. Kung lagi ka lang nasa iglesia, katulad ng mga Christians, umiiwas ng mga hindi Kristiyano, para lang gusto nila magtrabaho, takbo, tapos sa church. Kaya ka hindi nakaka-witness eh. Ang kasama mo, lagi Kristiyano lang. Umiiwas ka pa. Now, Joseph found favor in his eyes and became his attendant. Potiphar put him in charge of his household and he entrusted to his care everything he owned. Hindi lang si Joseph naging magaling na slave at nakita ni Potiphar, ini-promote siya na maging kanyang attendant. Okay? So from being a slave to his valet. Ngayon, he became his administrator. Sa galing niya, remember, when you're excellent, success will find you and you are given more and more authority. So, kay Potiphar, nagsimula siya na slave. Tapos from a slave, biglang naging attendant na siya, valet. And from valet, he has now become the house manager and the business administrator of Potiphar. Pansinin niyo, he entrusted to his care everything he owned. Ibig sabihin, hawak niya ang ATM, ang wallet, ang credit card, hawak niya lahat ng titulo. Ibig sabihin, yung mga ari-arian at ang mga business ni Potiphar, siya nagpapatakbo, siya business manager. So, when you are faithful in what you do, there are increasing levels of authority that will be given to you. And remember, he was not even an Egyptian. He was not even an Egyptian. So magugulat ka. And for him to be able to run the household, which means lahat ng slaves, ang nagmamando, nagsusupervise siya ng slaves. Now, since si Potiphar is a general, which means he also was exposed to a military frame of mind, and then of course, kung ano man mga vehicles nila, ano man mga kotse nila. So, I trusted everything that he owned. Sipin mo yun? Pati mga password ng mga account niya. Joseph found favor in Potiphar's eye and became his attendant. Joseph found favor in Potiphar's eyes and became his attendant. From the time he put him in charge of his household and of all that he owned, the Lord blessed the household of the Egyptian was blessed because of Joseph. Iisipin siguro, ay, si Joseph, maswerte si Joseph, ang pumili sa kanya si Potiphar. Ay, maswerte si Joseph kasi sa loob siya ng bahay, pinatira. Ay, maswerte si Joseph, ginawa siyang business manager. Teka. Baliktad. Maswerte, if we can use the word, maswerte si Potiphar na ang trabahante niya is a faithful son of God. We bring the blessing. The employers don't bring the blessing to us. We are the blessing to our employer. The blessing of the Lord was on everything Potiphar had, both in the house and in the field. Pansinin ninyo, nagpapatakbo siya ng bahay, nagpapatakbo ng field, which means may farmlands. May farmlands. So na-expose ako sa farming ngayon to si Joseph. The fields. So maraming property, maraming palayan ito si Potiphar. Okay? So natuto siya magpatakbo ng business. Now, si Potiphar, pinagkatiwalaan si Joseph with everything he owned. May pagkakatiwala ba sa iyo ang amo mo or ng boss mo or whoever it is? But beyond, he trusted. Napansin niyo, the Lord blessed the household of the Egyptian because of Joseph. Because of Joseph. Pansinin niyo po, alam natin na mag-e-election na next year. At nagkadaugaga tayo kung sinong pipiliin, tatakbo ba sila ni Robredo and all of these things. Ako sinusundan ko din yung mga investigasyon sa Senado dahil that will impact the politics. And of course, dahil may mga bangko nag-a-appear din doon. Okay? The thing is, ang mas malaking impact sa isang bansa are what the Christians will do rather than what the president will do. How do I know that? 2 Chronicles 7:14. If my people who are called by my name will humble their ways, turn from their sins, and turn to me, then I will forgive I will forgive them. I will heal them and I will heal their land. Pansinin nyo, if my people who are called by my name will humble themselves and turn from their wicked ways and pray, I will heal their land and I will bless them. Ano ang importante? Na ang mga tao ng Diyos ay faithful to Him. And wherever they are, they get blessed. Hindi sinabi dong, kung tama yung pagkapili mo ng presidente, ang mahirap kasi pag sinasabi mo, ito yung Christian candidate, pag natalo, parang natalo ba ang Diyos? Hindi naman eh. And in fact, God can actually use non-believers. Because regardless who you put on the throne, that God can override that person. The Lord is not bothered by who sits on the throne. He wants us to choose the right leaders. But even if He does not, God has used non-believers in the past to punish God's own people. You cannot stop God who He will use. Sabi nga ng Panginoon, if you will not follow, even even the stones can actually give voices to the stones and then sing and pray. Okay? And in fact, in one case, dahil matigas ang ulo, anong ginamit ng Panginoon? Yung the donkey, the talk, Balaam's ass. Diba? Balaam's ass. You know, that's really funny because isipin mo, you should be scared. You know, when your ass starts talking to you, that you should be scared. Okay? Now, the Lord blessed Potiphar because of Joseph. The Lord blessed Potiphar because of Joseph. So Potiphar left everything he had in Joseph's care. Everything, ha? Everything. General ito, hindi basta-basta nagtitiwala. Watch this. What is the level of excellence of Joseph? With Joseph in charge, he did not concern himself with anything except the food that he ate. Sipin mo to. Dahil ang galing, pag pinasa niya kay Joseph, may problema, bigyan mo kay Joseph. Pag nabigay kay Joseph, hindi na mag-iisip, siguradong magagawa niyan. Naghanap ng paraan yan at nasusolve niya yan. Si Joseph was the go-to guy. Ganun ka ba? Na kapag binigay sa'yo ng boss mo ang trabaho sa'yo, hindi na siya mag-worry. Or pag maski binigay siya ng boss mo, nag-worry, maya-maya chine-check ka dahil walang tiwala sa'yo. Iba si Joseph. Maparaan, marunong, mapagkatiwalaan. Isipin mo, ang trabaho lang ng boss niya. Iisipin, kapapasok pa lang sa opisina, isipin, ano lunch natin? Ang galing naman nito. Ganon kagaling si Joseph. Pag binigyan mo, matatapos yan. Okay? Magaling, marunong, mapagkatiwalaan, maparaan. With Joseph in charge, Potiphar did not worry about anything except food panda. Okay? God delights to bless unbelievers, and He will put His people in position and give them His favor to do that. God puts us in places, so they are blessed because we are there. The background, Potiphar's wife falsely accused Joseph of sexual assault. And Potiphar believed her lies and became very angry. And Potiphar had put Joseph in prison. So remember, afterwards, okay, so Potiphar falsely accused of sexual assault. And Potiphar believed her lies and became very angry. And Potiphar had put Joseph in prison. Do we look at God's goodness? Now, God brought favor, tapos ang kapalit sa kanya, he was being loyal, but people were disloyal to him. Do we look at God's goodness in the successes and accuse him of unfairness or abandonment the moment there is adversity? There is a difference between adversity and prosperity. In adversity, the decisions are easy. Simple, madali intindihin, but they are difficult. Simple in a sense na madali intindihin, but difficult i-implement. Okay? Simple. Para katulad ng diet. Simple. Iwas lang ng carbs. Madali ang principle. Ang hirap gawin. Yun ang ibig sabihin ng simple. But difficult to execute. Pag adversity, pag problema, simply ang decision making. You can choose between the good and the bad. You can choose to survive or die. Malinaw yung choices. Pero pag prosperity, the choice is not between good and bad. The choices is between many good. Kasi pag prosperous ka, ang dami mong option. Dati ito lang pwedeng bilhin mo, dito lang pwedeng kainan mo. Ngayon marami ka ng pera, natataranta ka na kung anong restaurant ang pupuntahan mo. Dati ang ma-afford mo lang, ito lang ganitong t-shirt. Ngayon marami ka na pwedeng bilhin damit, natataranta ka na kung saan ka bibili. It's the choice between the good and the best. Some people are destroyed by adversity. But more people are destroyed by prosperity. Mga taong nag-abroad, nagkaroon ng pera, yumabang na dahil ang dami ng pera, kung ano, saan na napupunta. Tapos naubos din naman, wala rin na iuwi. Be very careful. Be very careful. In prosperity has destroyed many persons more than adversity. He became a prisoner. Remember, when he became a slave, he became a model slave. He was a prisoner. He became a model prisoner. But while Joseph was in prison, the Lord was with him. He showed him kindness and granted him favor in the eyes of the prison warden. Maski pa itong si Joseph parang pusa eh. Maski anong bato mo babagsak, nakaapak sa apat na paa. Maski saan siya ilagay, he excels. The Lord was with Joseph and showed him kindness. Pero sabi ko, Lord, kung kind ka sa kanya, ba't siya nakakulong? Lord, kung kind ka sa kanya, bakit siya naging slave? We will explain that when we hit session 4. But while Joseph was there in prison, the Lord was with him and showed him kindness and granted him favor in the eyes of the prison warden. The Lord granted Joseph favor. The Lord granted Joseph favor, which means blessing. You are being made into a blessing in the eyes of the warden. A blessing to the employer is not just what you give, but who you are can be a blessing. Okay, so the warden, parang katulad din ni Potiphar, put Joseph in charge of all those held in prison. And he was made responsible for all that was done there. Isipin nyo ngayon, si Joseph na preso, ginawang in charge sa mga kapwa preso. Which means hindi naniniwala itong si warden na may kasalanan si Joseph. Okay? Now, isipin mo, the warden put Joseph, a prisoner, in charge of all the prisoners and the procedure. Teka. Can you imagine the conversation? Sabi, umuwi si prison warden doon sa bahay. Darling, nasa bahay, I'm home. Sabi niya, Darling, ang aga mo, alas 5 pa, dito ka na eh. Paano yung prison? Hindi, meron na akong assistant doon talaga. Ang galing niya eh. Hindi mo lang ako ginagawa, kaya maaga ako makauwi eh. Maghahabol pa ako ng telenovela natin. Korean. Maaga ako umuwi. But sino ba yon? Meron kasi isang Hebrew na preso. Teka, pakiulit. Yung ginawa mong in charge, preso din. Darling, hindi ka ba nasisira? Baka kami pakawalan lahat ng mga preso ka mo, pinag-in-charge mo sa preso. Hindi, napagkakatiwalaan ko talaga to. Kutob ko rito, hindi walang kasalanan yan eh. Falsely accused yan. Can you see, wherever he goes, people will end up trusting him. Potiphar did. The warden did. Ganon siya kaano sa trabaho niya. Maski saan mo ilagay, he will excel. Joseph's attitude could not have come naturally. It was tempting to do na, basta gawin ko lang kung ano minimum. Basta kung gawin ko lang yung anong requirement. Para bang sa ano, di bali hindi ako mag-honor basta pumasa lang, maski pasang awa basta pumasa lang. It was tempting to do just the minimum. It was a choice to give the best. To do the best, you have to choose the best regardless of the situation. Isipin mo yan? Katulad, walang pinag-iba yan sa mga taong nagtatanong, teka, yung 10% ba ng tithe, gross o net? Yung mga taong ganyan, walang balak magbigay yan. Ipipina doon sa pinaka-minimum. Actually, regardless yung tanong na yon, because maski pa 10% yon, God still owns the 90%. Para namang sa'yo yung natitira, no? So yung mga taong nagtatanong ng kasi ipipina nila na minimum ang ibibigay nila. So, para ang gusto nila, magbigay sila sa Lord ng tip ang ibibigay nila. Okay? Excellence. It is not being the best. Hindi kailangan ikaw number 1. Hindi nang hinahanap. It is about doing your best. Kung anong kakayahan mo, isagad mo. Ibig sabihin, hindi naman tayo ginawa pare-pareho ng Lord. Meron sa iba't sa atin talaga na kung ikaw pa ay bumbilya, 1,000 watts ang capability mo. That's the way God designed you. Merong iba hanggang 50 watts lang. Sa harapan ng Diyos, kung yung 50 watts nagsashine at 50 watts, sinagad niya ang kaya niya. mas blessed yun sa isang tao na 1,000 watts, pero nagsashine lang siya at 500 watts. It's not about being the best na magaling ka, pangit yung iba. Hindi yun ang comparison. Ikaw ba, sagad ba, sa binigay sa ng Diyos ang gamit mo? It is not being the best compared with others. Kasi there will always be somebody better than you. It's not about being the best. It's about doing your best. In other words, compared to the opportunity, the abilities, the gifts God has given you. Anong binigay sa ng Lord? Saan ka ba gumraduate? Ang schooling mo. Saan ka ba nakatira? Saan gym ka ba nagpupunta? The opportunities God gave you. It is not about being the best. It's about doing your best. Oh, by the way, God does not like us to compare. Ang sabi ng Panginoon, do not look at others. Focus, okay, fix your eyes on Jesus. Naalala niyo sa John 21 nung si Peter pinatawad ng Panginoon? Di ba? Tapos sinabihan siya ng Peter, by the way, you will die you will die a martyr's death. Ang sabi agad ni Peter, si Peter Pilipino talaga, Lord, what about John? What about him? Sabi ng Lord, kung ano man ang gagawin ko kay John, wala ka na pakialam dun. Do not compare yourselves with other people. Pero to si Peter, parang Pilipino, no? Lord, kung babagsak ako, mandadamay na ako ng iba. Idadamay ko na si John. Isipin mo na nananahimik si John sa tabi niya. So, pag nakita mo yan, do not compare. Why? Magkakasala ka. Because kapag nag-compare ka and you feel sa assessment mo, mas magaling ka, that's the sin of pride. Pag nag-compare ka, feeling mo, mas mahina ka, mas magaling sila, mapupuno ka ng inggit, that's the sin of envy. That's why do not compare. You will end up sinning. Okay? You will end up sinning. Do not compare. Do not compare. Do not compare. Ang sabi nga, because comparing is a sin. Ano nga yung 11th commandment? The 11th commandment is, thou shalt not eat salt because it is a sin. Okay? So anyway, comparing is a sin. Do not compare with others. Compare with the gift God has given you. The warden paid no attention to Joseph's care. Anything, parang katulad kay Potiphar. The moment na pinasa mo kay Joseph, huwag mo nang balikan, kaya niya yan. Under Joseph, because the Lord was with Joseph and gave him success in whatever he did. With Joseph in charge, the warden, like Potiphar, did not worry about anything. With Joseph in charge, the warden did not worry about anything. The warden paid no attention to anything under Joseph's care because the Lord was with Joseph and gave him success in whatever he did. Whatever he did, maski anong ibigay mo sa kanya, natutunan siya, inaaral niya, gumagaling siya. The warden recognized that it was God who made Joseph successful. Ang kanilang pagka-Kristiyano, kitang-kita, hindi lang tinatago, pero kitang-kita. Ang tawag natin doon sa kitang-kita, halatang obvious. Okay? Halatang obvious ang magiging mananampalataya nila sa Diyos. Bottom line, Joseph was often treated unfairly because life is not fair. Ikaw ba, you will not do your best? Oo, kasi nung huling promotion, di naman ako promote eh. Hindi, maliit lang yung increase sa akin eh. Ay, ayoko, di ko gusto ang boss ko. May ibang favorite ang boss ko. Will your excellence be based on the people around you or your situation? No. You will base it on the fact that when you work for God, regardless of who your earthly employer is. Joseph focused more on present opportunities rather than his past disappointments. For him to work well as a slave, he has to forgive his brothers. And later, nung nilagay niya in prison, he had in his mind to forgive Potiphar and his wife. Otherwise, he cannot focus on being good in prison. Joseph based his choices on God's character. I can trust God. I can trust God. Hindi na, I will trust God because my circumstances are good. No. You trust God because of His character, not because of your circumstances. Do not judge God based on your circumstances. Judge your circumstances based on how you understand God. The labeling of work na secular and church activities are sacred has depressed and misdirected countless Christians in their choices and engagement. Para bang ibibless ka lang ng Lord, higher level na commitment kapag magpastor ka. Mas higher level ang commitment. Actually, at least yung pastor, yung trabaho niya at yung ministry niya iisa. So tipid sa oras. Ministry na niya, yun pa yung kanyang trabaho, yung trabaho. Tayo, parang magtatrabaho ka na, maghanap ka pa ng oras mag-minister. Teka, medyo mali yun. Ano ang sabi ni Paul sa Colossians? And this was written to slaves. Whatever you do, work at it with all of your heart. Ano man ang binigay sa iyong trabaho, buhos mo. Working for the Lord, not for human masters. Alam ko may human masters ka. Alam ko makikinabang sila. Pero pag nagtrabaho ka, huwag mo tignan kung anong ginagawa ng human masters mo. Since you know that when you receive a reward or an inheritance, it comes from God. It is the Lord Christ you are serving. Pag may binigay sa'yo, buhos. In other words, hindi ka nakikipolitika. Depende kasi kung gusto ako ng boss ko o hindi. It is irrelevant. You have one master and your master is the Lord. It is irrelevant kung anong position mo. It is irrelevant kung malaki sweldo mo. It is irrelevant kung na-promote ka. It is irrelevant kung pinapahirapan ka ng boss mo. Do your best. Second, when you do something, buhos, huwag kang magpigil. Sabi ni Solomon in Ecclesiastes, whatever your hand finds to do it with all of your might. In the realm of the dead, where you are going. Because dito lang sa lupang to, we can work for God. Dito sa lupang to, we will have other people. Dito lang sa lupang to, we serve God. Pagdating sa langit, dito lang tayo mag-evangelize. Buhos na natin dito. Wala nang evangelism sa langit eh. Buhos na natin dito. Pag binigyan ka ng Panginoon ng assignment, buhos mo na. Ito naman, circumstance proof. Regardless of where you are, the standard for giving and serving God is one and the same, regardless of the circumstances. And third, if you are competent, pursue excellence, and success will find you. Because kung magaling ka, lulutang at lulutang ka. Because in the marketplace, ang hinahanap, the people who deliver results. If you can deliver results, if you can solve problems, okay, lulutang at lulutang ka. Do you see any truly competent workers? They will serve kings rather than work for ordinary people. Napansin niyo yun? In other words, future-proof. Whether now or tomorrow, okay, for as long as you serve competently for God, regardless of what the future holds, you will be a competent worker. And this is why your ministry is your work is your ministry. The work of my hands, my work is my ministry. With these three legs on which to stand, my work is my ministry. Tanong, how many of the disciples or the apostles were from the marketplace? All of them. None of them was a religious teacher. None of them was a rabbi. None of them was a teacher. They were all from the marketplace and they were serving God. Our response, Potiphar and the warden clearly saw God in Joseph's life. Ikaw ba, the way you serve, the way you work, where you are today, how obvious is your relationship with God? Obvious to the persons above you, the superior persons who you supervise, mga boss mo? Is it obvious sa mga co-workers mo? Ano magagawa mo para mas more like Joseph ka? Saang area ka mag-grow? Pangalawa, ano bang mga paraan na naranasan mo ang disappointment sa career o relationships mo, but you still need to deliver the best that you can? Third, anong gagawin para ang focus mo hindi dun sa mga hinagpis sa hugot mo? Harapin mo kung anong nasa harapan mo. So God can bless you. And that's what he did, si Joseph. Nung nasa pit, kinuha siya maging slave, he became a good slave, na-promote siya ng valley. Pagkapatapos ng valley, na-promote siya maging manager, binato siya sa prison, tuloy pa rin, gumaling siya, humawak siya ng prison system. The only way he can do that is to forgive the past and face the future by embracing the present. How do you prepare for the future? Embrace the present. Do what you can with what you have, where you are today. So there are discussion questions that I hope you will go through. Those in page 20, go through that as a mirror to reflect on your life. And on page 19, choose an item and share with another person the next time that you meet. So this is the portions where we can find it in your workbook. That next time it is Joseph and his choices.